Hey everyone, good evening and thank you very much for being here. Just give me one moment to confirm that the stream is connected and that we have an excellent connection and right, looks like we are good to go. So
Good evening from southern part of Africa. Not sure if you can see me and hear me clearly.
I think we have an excellent connection. Guys, let me know in the comments if we have audio. Loud and clear. Thank you very much, David. Much appreciated. Thank you everyone for being here. So guys,
Great.
you know my guest Shamoon Kakan, and we are dual streaming on both channels simultaneously. Right, so I'm streaming on my channel, and the stream is also being sent to his channel at the same time. All right, guys, thank you. So tonight's chat,
Yeah.
or tonight's discussion, is an analysis of the treatment of women within Christianity and in Islam. From the Islamic side, of course, I will utilize the Islamic scriptures, including the Sirah, the Sunnah, and so on, the Quran, the Hadith, and also the Sharia, of course. And you will be providing us. Please tell us, Shamoon, give us a brief introduction and tell us how you want to present this from your side.
Okay. So first of all, I just wanted to, Lloyd has this weird way of pronouncing my surname. It's actually Hakan. You've got to
Hakan,
speak from within. Hakan, from your throat.
Shamoon Hakan. Okay, my name is Lloyd De
Hakan.
Jongh, not Lloyd De Jongh.
Yeah. I usually, call you, at least not when I'm talking with you, De Jong. So, yeah.
Radio.
Okay. So, treatment of women in Christianity versus Islamic Sharia law. The structure that we're going to follow today is we're going to have an introduction as to why we're actually having this conversation. I think that answering that question helps the Muslim community understand that we're not going out on a limb to, hack them into pieces or whatever the case is, that we're not haters or whatever. It really just is an assessment and evaluation of different perspectives in this regard. Then, secondly, as we progress in the program, what we're going to do is that after the introduction, we're going to have a brief look into the Christian view of women, how women are viewed and how they are to be treated. Third, we are going to look at a few claims from a few Muslim scholars, well-known scholars. Namely, I'm going to look at Dr. Shabir Ali, Muhammad Hijab, and Nauman Ali Khan. These are well-known scholars of Islam around the world. Dr. Shabir Ali and Muhammad Hijab are famous debaters for those interested in apologetics and Islamic theology. You should know that. And then lastly, what we're going to do is that Lloyd is going to, like last time, take us through a deep dive into the Sharia, whereby we will see then how a woman are viewed and are to be treated. So that's just the structure that we'll be following. And a note, please, a very important note to keep in mind is that we are going to cut off in 60 minutes. Please bear in mind 60 minutes on the dot. If we need to continue, we'll have a second segment, but we are going
Yeah.
to close off in 60 minutes. So first 45 minutes are intended to be a presentation where we'll just discuss through a few things, and then
Right.
the last 15 minutes would be open for questions. Last time Lloyd and I had this conversation, and we noticed that the questions in between our presentation was very distracting, and it was all over the place. So we want to try and avoid that this time.
Okay.
Lloyd, anything to add?
I know that's it from me. So guys, yeah, do post the questions and let's hope. So also at the end, so once we get to the questions, please just at Lloyd me, use my name, and then we'll do our best to get through the questions. And obviously, otherwise, we catch you in the comments and we continue again in 1 week's time. All right, guys. So let's begin. So Shamoon, Hakan, do you want to begin or
Okay.
shall I
Yeah.
begin? Do you want to? So up to you. Coin toss.
Um, okay, great. So the introduction as to why is this important? Why is this specific topic a very important topic? The reason being is that I've heard, I'm not sure, Lloyd, if you've ever heard Muslim scholars and generally the Muslim the community, the response is that, hey, Muhammad's marriage with Aisha was never an issue. It's just in recent past whereby Christian missionaries are using this to discredit or to demonize Islam in a way. So I must say that from at least from my perspective is not true. It's not necessarily to demonize, it's to actually bring out an objective
Yeah.
perspective in the sense that, yeah, go ahead.
I do want to add to that that lately what I'm hearing from Muslims is when I quote their own sources, I literally quote Islamic sources. I quote Bukhari, I quote the Quran, I quote the
Yeah,
Sharia, I quote the Tafsir, and they'll tell me, why are you using sources from from evil Christian missionaries? So no
yeah,
matter what sources I quote, they immediately, those sources become Christian missionary sources from people who hate Islam. I
yeah.
wasn't aware that Al-Ghazali, Bukhari, Shafi, Malik, Hanbal hated Islam and were Christian missionaries, but this is what it is now.
Yeah, it is. It is very troubling in the sense that even when we talk about an issue, a comparative issue such as this, as women in Christianity or Islam, the pushback is like you guys are doing this pointlessly and aimlessly. And I must say to our audience that this is not an aimless discussion. It's a very viable and a justified discussion. The reason being is that we are living in a world full of women. and and then such a discussion actually becomes very important in the sense that it informs different religions and different ideologies, inform us men and women or whoever in this world that lives on how to view women and how to treat them
Women.
now
Yeah.
in our times. And so it
Right.
becomes a very important discussion to have.
Right. So do you want to lead off with something from the Christian side, or shall I start off with some comments from the Islamic side?
I think you can go ahead. You can start.
Okay, so tell you what, I will just capture my display. And okay, so guys, again, I want to always lead off with something that's going to get your attention. And this, of course, is from the #2 most used Islamic Sharia law resource, which is used in the Pakistani, Indian, and Bangladeshi court systems, for instance. And again, I want you to show this to Muslims, paste it, give it to them,
Yeah.
and ask them. This is a law from Islamic law. When a man has had sexual intercourse with a girl under the age of 9 years and has ruptured the parts, in other words, he has destroyed her private parts,
So, yeah.
it is unlawful for him to have further connection with her, but she is not released from her ties if connected to him by marriage or slavery. Now, please understand that this clearly condones marriage with underaged minors as well as sex with underaged minors, and in fact also allows sexual slavery, as you can see, because
Yeah.
slavery is still legal in Islam and has never, ever been abandoned, has never been banned. If no damage to her private parts has taken place, he is allowed to continue having his way with her, as this law states. So this is one of the, so from a young age, this is what women can face within Islam. Your comments on that, Shamun?
Yeah, that the first time you showed me that, I was very shocked at this. I've never actually been exposed to such kind of detail, gruesome detail in when it comes to how men should actually view women in even in sexual regards. It really is disturbing. I'm lost for words when I come across stuff like this. Another note is that what you just said about the slavery part. A lot of Muslims would be like, no, a lot of scholars, this. We understand that recent scholars, they would say, no, slavery is not, it's done away with, etc.
No.
Islam sets free, etc. We're looking at the Sharia, and the Sharia, at least in my understanding, is timeless, unless
Yes.
Muslim scholars have all of a sudden decided that Sharia is going to be changed now. Now
No.
that in itself would be an
No, that
interesting,
cannot.
uh, yeah, it would be interesting to see how they do that. But
The
we're
Sharia is
looking in.
is the summation of the timeless laws of Allah and Muhammad. And just one thing, I want to say thank you, Corin Thompson. I really appreciate the donation. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, so go on, please, Shimon.
Yeah, so it really is a disturbing thing, and so Muslim scholars just coming across and being like, okay, no, we are this is not true and that is not true. When you look into the Islamic sources, you can't deny these things, and so it really is just troubling. So
Yeah,
if you want to say that slavery, no, that Lloyd at this stage is lying, which we have been accused of, that you're a liar, right?
right.
That
Although
you're an idiot, etc.
that statement is made without any evidence to back it up. I asked them, I even give Muslims the Sharia sources, and I say, now please show me from the major sources of the schools of fiqh exactly how I am wrong, and they refuse to do so. So yeah, so guys,
Yeah.
let me just continue. So now these are the words of Aisha. Aisha is the mother of the Muslims, as you know. She is Muhammad's favorite wife. She is also regarded in Islam as a scholar in her own right. And she says here, it is you, she says this to Muhammad, it is you who pretend to be a prophet from Allah. Shamun, where in the Bible, or where in the New Testament does the 9-year-old wife of Jesus, or do the apostles accuse Jesus of not being of being a fake prophet, of pretending?
Nowhere.
Yes.
Nowhere at all.
Now, this is from the second most widely read spiritual book in Islam, the Ihya Ulum al-Din by Al-Ghazali, the number one Muslim scholar in history. It's called the Book on Etiquettes of Marriage, and of course, here's a second source. Now, notice Muhammad says, Allah's messenger said, the superiority of Aisha over other women is like the superiority of tarid to other meals. So he compares her to food, but he says she is the most superior food. So she is superior to other women, and that's Bukhari, which would make it Sahih. So Aisha, of course,
Just a
is
note,
yes,
that really is an interesting choice of comparison likeness. Food.
yeah, exactly. So now something I want to bring up very early. I want to bring up this. Now, Muslim apologists will very regularly bring up, oh, in Christianity, look, you can look at the US, you can marry young girls, you can marry young girls from an early age. Why are you blaming Islam? Well, first of all, America is not the birthplace of Jesus. The Americans are not the Sunnah for Christians. We do not follow Americans as our God, right? That is Jesus, who did not have a 9-year-old wife. Am I correct there, Shamun?
Definitely.
Right.
Well,
So,
Jesus doesn't
yeah,
have any wives. He wasn't
exactly.
married.
So understand, so Muhammad is the founder of the Islamic religion. He is the most important person in that religion. He is its founder.
Yeah.
And of course, so this is not a fair comparison. There's not an equivalence. Now, I want to show you this website. And I want to thank, yeah, she knows who she is, Betsy. So yeah, this is, they constantly bring up the legal age of marriage and consent in the United States. Now, understand, there are certain laws. Now, first of all, America is not a religious theocracy. It is a secular state. It is able to make up its own laws. But let's have a look. The age of consent in Washington is 16. Montana, 16. 17 in Idaho. 17 in Wyoming. 16 here. 18 here in Iowa. 16. What is the age of consent? Looking at that verse that the law that I just showed you, and based on our show 2 weeks ago, the age of consent in Islam is 0 to 1 years old. Right? Is that a true statement based on our previous show, Shamun?
Yes, it is. It is. Infants and etc. We went through those phrases.
Yeah. So understand. So here also, in many cases, as far as I know, this is the age of consent. 16, 17, 18 is not 1 year old. It is not 5 years old. Okay? And also,
Yeah.
in many cases, there needs to be a check. In fact, the parents can actually step in, and there needs to be, the court is obliged, I believe in many cases, to actually verify that the couple are able to legally do so, and they do a background check on the husband to make sure he is not some kind of vicious monster. Okay?
Can I make a
So,
comment?
yes?
Yes, you're showing us this map thing with the age and all of that. A 16-year-old is grossly different by physically and mentally, emotionally than a 5-year-old.
Yes.
So to say, like I have heard this, unfortunately, some of my Muslim friends have said stuff like, if it's okay in America to marry 16 years old, why are you raising the issue of us getting married to 6-year-olds? And you're like, I'm dumbstruck, and I'm like, do you not realize the age gap and the biological gap that occurs within 6 and 16 or 18 or etc.
Correct.
That's a major difference.
No, that's very true. So understand, so guys, this is the difference. These are the ages here. So this is called the age of consent map. All right. So just learn to use this. There's a big difference, correct? So the ageofconsent.net/states. Now, I'm not going to go into this at length, but I want to. This is a much older study, 2015. There have been updates, but this graphic is very useful. These are the 15 worst countries for women, right? Yemen, Pakistan, Syria, Chad, Iran, Jordan, Morocco, Lebanon, Egypt, and Mali. Shamoon, what are these first 10, the top 10 worst countries for women? What do they have in common?
Oh, they're Muslim.
Correct. These are all Islamic states. Let's continue.
Yeah.
11, Oman.
Islamic State.
I've been to Oman many times. It's actually, there's some wonderful people there. I've met some wonderful Omanis. A really lovely country. But still, Oman, Islamic. Saudi Arabia, Islamic. Ivory Coast, right? We can always have a look at that. Mauritania, very Islamic. Understand? So let's say that 14 of the top 15 worst places in the world for women are all Islamic countries. Actually, well, technically, according to this list, they're all Islamic, right? So, guys, so feel free to look that up, right? So this is the 15th, this is the 2015 WF Global Gender Gap Index. So these are the worst places. Now, this is a reference you will find in the Sharia, and it references Tafsir ibn Kathir, and it also references the Hadith. Muhammad said, a man will not be asked why he beat his wife. Now, I'm always told that I misunderstand, right? That I'm quoting things I don't understand. How am I supposed to understand this? A man will not be asked why he beat his wife. This is the founder of the Islamic religion that said this. What are your thoughts, Shimon?
I'm actually just waiting for you to kind of complete your thought here. Oh, so, okay, just a question for you now. The Prophet said, at this stage, of course, we are all on the same page. This is the Islamic Prophet. He said a man will not be asked as to why he beat his wife. Within what context was this stated, though?
There is no context given. This is just the Hadith as is. However, if you want context, we can then go to the Sharia, which defines it. Of course, this is derived from and will be consonant with Quran 434.
Yes, 434. That's an interesting one as well, because I still wanted us to look at that at some stage. Okay.
Right. Now, within the Sharia, we have section 025.3. A people that leaves its leadership to a woman will never succeed. So this is in the Sharia. This is the law for all time. So in other words, a country led by women will lead to failure. This is the standard view of women. So this obviously lets us know that women have an inferior status within Islam. Right. Well, thank you very much, World Changer. Yes?
Is this a factual statement, or
this is
like
straight out of the Sharia?
Now, as in, is this like, does Islamic source, when writing this, in the mind of the writer, does he believe that this is a factual statement? Because, as far as I know, there are many leaders that are women, and they succeed pretty well in different areas of things.
Well,
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Look, this is standard practice. Right, this is simply, remember, the Sharia will never be implemented fully until the end of time, or rather the end times, when Muhammad comes back and so on. Then you'll see full Sharia, but until then, we will have the best effort they can make until then. Right. So now, this is simply what I wanted to raise now. Just also on the question of mutta, I wanted to bring up, so to cover some things that were asked of me earlier. Temporary marriage or mutta technically has been abolished within Sunni Islam. It still happens, but technically speaking, it is abolished within Sunnah Islam, right?
Do you want to quickly define mutta for our audience?
Mutta is temporary marriage, right? Don't forget that marriage in Islam, the nikah, does not mean, it's not a sacrament of marriage. Nikah effectively means legal sexual intercourse, right? It is strictly defined as just legal sexual intercourse, intercourse for which you cannot be killed.
Yeah, you did show us that definition in our previous live discussion, didn't you?
Yes, I just discussed that. Yes.
Yeah, you did show that. Okay.
So any questions from if there's any questions from the comment section in the chat, just drop it in. So Shamoon, I'll let you continue from here if you can tell us some things.
From the Christian perspective?
From the Christian perspective, yeah. Just to start off to give us, and then I can provide counterpoints.
Okay, so from the Christian perspective, since this is a comparative discussion, I've actually divided the section into two as to how Christianity views women, and then how does Christianity encourage treatment toward women. Okay, so those in the audience, if you guys want to quickly open Proverbs chapter 31, and Ephesians 5 would also be a good one to kind of keep at hand. So in Proverbs 31, you have the idea of a woman who is somewhat of a provider. She provides like stability within home.
Do you want to share your screen, Shamoon? Because I can share your screen.
I don't have the notes. I've actually gotten handwritten.
Okay, fine. If you can just go through them then.
Okay. So that's why I was actually, these are verses that people can just open. Proverbs chapter 31 from verses 10 downwards. Is that the woman is actually a provider. She provides stability. She works while the husband, relaxes on the street corners with other men. He feels proud of her or of his wife. That is such a great thing to him. She's such a blessing to the children and to the husband. Moreover, her authority is that she makes major financial decisions. That the woman actually is like, the proverb writer, he actually says that she, okay, there we go. I can't clearly see on your screen.
Yeah, I'm just magnifying, but yeah, I just grabbed the first reference. Yeah, a wife of noble character who can find, she's worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life.
Yeah. So as you keep progressing into this thing, you'll notice that she brings him, verse 12, she brings him good, not harm. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. Okay, something is blocking there.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Yep, go on.
Okay.
She provides food for her family.
Verse 16 for me also is a very significant one, that actually she considers a field and buys it out of her earrings and plants and vineyard or whatever. So she's making major financial decisions for the family. When I read that, I was like, that truly, to a certain extent, leaves no, there's no real differentiation between a male and a woman in regards to their them as persons before God. They are able, and there's capacity given to women to perform such highly regarded duties that would generally, from at least the Muslim perspective, would be given to the man. He considers this and he does that, and whatever the case is. And so it really is a different thing. And so
perspective. Yeah.
Also, it's a different perspective. She is also wise, by the way. Something that last time you brought up is that the woman, within at least the Islamic context, I'll leave you to elaborate on that later, a little later, is that she is wise. Do you see that in?
No, women
Uh,
are considered to be half the value of a man, and they are
yeah.
half of the intelligence of a man. So women are deficient in intelligence. These are the official words of Muhammad. Women are deficient in their intelligence. In fact, let me try and
That,
search for those so I
yeah.
can try and find that term. But yeah,
Verse, at least, okay, from the Christian perspective, at least, verse 26, Proverbs 31, she opens her mouth with wisdom, and in her tongue is the law of kindness.
right,
So, yeah, so that once again, she is wise. And yeah, also the fact that she looks well to the ways of her household, and she eats not the bread of idleness. She is an overseer of her household.
well,
There's great responsibility and a great respect and regard for the women at this stage in Christianity. How does Christianity view women?
right,
Christianity views women greatly. And well, we go back to also Genesis, where man and woman are made in likeness of image, so that in itself is such a great thing. Another thing that I wanted to while you look at your stuff
yeah,
there,
well, yeah,
Ephesians 5:21.
I'll
Ephesians
try and find that.
5:21. I must say that this one is, if there's any confusion about how women are treated or viewed, 5:21 is a very, it's a key verse to understand something very significant, is that as the Apostle Paul gets into discussing the roles of women and men, he begins with this understanding is submitting yourself one to another in the fear of God.
Right, so submit to one
Submitting,
another out
yes,
of reverence for Christ in a different
yes.
translation.
There we go. There we go. You see? So,
Yeah.
in that sense, that she is worthy of the same kind of submission that the man is,
So
due.
do not try to,
She
would you
is
say this is
worth.
saying do not try to dominate one another, but submit to each other?
Yes,
Try to meet each other's
exactly,
needs halfway?
exactly, exactly.
Right,
That in this regard, there's no, like there's not like, okay, the male is deserving of more and the woman less, or whatever the case is. And so
right,
the Apostle Paul creates a very good standard, a very strong foundation before he goes into understanding is that, okay, guys, this is how you behave in a marriage. But before you understand your different roles, understand this, that before the throne of the Holy God, you guys are submitting to one another in same way. There's no difference between you guys.
right.
So
I
I
need to
thought
say
that that
thank.
was,
Sorry, uh,
yeah,
sorry. Yeah, I would say thank you to the Dashing Rogue for the donation, much appreciated. And hi, Stephen, welcome. Yeah, guys. So while we are here, let me bring up just briefly, since we're similar to the topic, in Surah 223, 223, it says here, "Your wives are as a tilth unto you. Approach your tilth when or how you will." Right.
hmm,
So this says that you can do with your wife as you please when you please. Right. Now notice that Muslim women inherit only half as much as men. Now this is derived from Quran 4:11. We can of course go to the Sharia, and we will, and we can discuss some of these where you'll see that this is written into the law in detail. So the Quran may have one verse that stipulates women inherit half as much as men. The specific details, maybe chapters worth of it or paragraphs worth of it, pages worth, will be found in the Sharia. Notice that women's testimony is only worth half that of a man, and as Muhammad says, women are inferior for men are a degree above them. That is the Quran 2:228. Sahih Bukhari, Muhammad said, is not the evidence of two women equal to the witness of one man. They replied, the women apparently replied in the affirmative. He said, this is because of the deficiency in her intelligence. So Muhammad explicitly says women are deficient in intelligence. Your thoughts?
yeah. Now,
No.
okay. Well, once again, that is like, now that is standing on opposite ends,
Yeah.
at least when it comes to the Christian testimony of how to actually view and the intelligence of a woman. At least
Right.
she is wise, definitely.
Yeah. So
Proverbs
let's
31.
yeah. Let me bring up another. This is I believe this is Bukhari. So this is the virtues of the prayer hall, the sutra of the Musalla. The things which annul the prayers were mentioned before me. This is Aisha speaking. They said, prayer is annulled by a dog, a donkey, and a woman. And I said, so she says to Muhammad, you have made us women dogs. Your thoughts on that?
I'm actually a little surprised at this stage. Never came across this before.
Yes, I
Well,
know.
I shouldn't be surprised of being surprised at this stage when talking with you. You
Yes,
have a
well,
tendency of surprising me with such
well, let
stuff.
me do hadith number 486. Aisha says, do you make us women equal to dogs and donkeys? She asked this, while I used to lie in my bed, the Prophet would come and pray and so on. I used to slip away slowly and quietly from the foot of the bed till I got out of my guilt, because he would pray and she would then leave the room because she felt that she was defiling his prayer, because she felt that he made them equal to dogs and donkeys. This is the
Huh.
great prophet of Islam, in fact, the great God of Islam, and his wife felt like she was a dog or a donkey. Now, I will read one more passage. Aisha, the most beloved of Muhammad's many wives, said to Muslim women, O womenfolk, if you knew the rights that your husbands have over you, every one of you would wipe the dust from a husband's feet with your face. Reported as Sahih by Ibn Habban and with a Jaid Isnad by Al-Bazr. Its narrators are well known and are thiqat. See Ibn al-Jawzi, Ahkam al-Nisa, page 311. This is Sahih. So if a woman knew the rights of her husband over, she would wipe his feet with her face. Your thoughts?
Wow. Well, shocked again. From at least from a Christian perspective, the just getting into the book of Ephesians as well and stuff, it does definitely seem like there's a lot more responsibility of on the man toward the wife than the wife toward the man. And here, definitely, at least in what you're showing me, the Islamic perspective of women is definitely a different one. That there is more responsibility of the woman to just, I don't know, be a dog or whatever the case is at this stage. Gee whiz, man.
Yeah.
That is very
Now, this is
radical. Well,
Aisha saying
once
this, and
again,
this is his
very,
favorite
very
wife.
different.
Yes?
Yeah, just saying, like at this stage, once again, very, very different than at least the Christian perspective of a woman. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. So I'll go back to the top. So guys, so hopefully we're starting to see there's a very different aspect between the Christian point of view and the Islamic point of view. Now, I don't think I'm going to read through every single note I have here right now, but you asked me,
Yeah.
for instance, there is a hadith, right? Allah, Muhammad declared, this is from Al-Mujam al-Kabir, a hadith compiled by Imam Tabarani. Muhammad declared that Allah will wed me in paradise to Mary, daughter of Imran. This is the mother of Jesus. This is Mother Mary. So he says here, Allah will wed me in paradise to Mary. Note the Arabic word for marriage denotes legal sexual relations and is devoid of Western romantic connotations. It is a completely different connotation. All right, and I'll continue here. So you probably are aware that Muhammad is regarded in the history of Tabari as a womanizer, right? It states bluntly, Muhammad is a womanizer. Now, before I continue, Shamoon, has Jesus been accused of being a womanizer? Because today I heard a very well-known commenter on the channel, a troll called AA Abrams or AAA Abrams, whichever pseudonym is using today, claiming that Jesus was consorting with a prostitute who went down on him, while she was washing his feet. And yes, this is the kind of thing they state. Now, I don't think there's any evidence or discussion from the Bible of Jesus having sex with
Well,
prostitutes, but
well, I've
yeah,
also heard what's his name, man? The guy that you made the video about yesterday. What's his
Didat,
name?
Ahmed Didat.
Didat. Yeah. I've also heard him in many of his presentations make this assertion that Mary was, somehow in a relationship with Jesus, and when Jesus says Mary, he doesn't just say Mary, he says Mary, something about like he's being weird about it. So that's
Yes,
how at least he puts it. But at least once again with no evidence to back that up at all,
right,
and I mean anywhere besides
right.
Muslims just saying that.
Yeah, Stephen, thanks for noting that. Yeah, it shocks Muslims to learn some of these things. So this is in the History of At-Tabari, volume 9, page 139. Layla bint blah
Yeah.
blah 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 approached the Prophet and clapped him on his shoulder. He asked who it was, and she replied, I am the daughter of one who competes with the wind. I am Layla bint al-Khattam. I've come to offer you myself in marriage, so marry me. He replied, I accept. She went back to her people and said that the Messenger of Allah had married her, and they said, what a bad thing you have done. You are a self-respecting woman, but the Prophet is a womanizer. Get an annulment from him. She went back to the Prophet and asked him to revoke the marriage, and he complied. So she requested to marry him, and people said, you have done a bad thing. You're a self-respecting woman. He is a womanizer. Annul the marriage. Now,
Huh.
what are your thoughts on that?
She was.
You didn't know that before?
Oh,
Sorry.
well, I knew that, I knew that a lot of people call Muhammad a womanizer. I didn't know that the sources actually call him a womanizer. That's a new one for me. That definitely is news.
Yeah, this is from the
So,
Last Years of the Prophet, Volume 9, page 139. Yes, it is in a formal Islamic source.
is a womanizer.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't. I don't know. I think that at this stage it would be helpful to hear from our Muslim audience, if there is anyone there, to hear what do they think about that specific claim as well. And so far all that we've said that and have seen rather,
They will
so
try to, so even within the sources, the commentary below this passage tries to say that Muhammad has many wives already. It just means womanizer in the sense of he's someone who already has many women. So, oh, what is a
but he has
womanizer?
many women, but he has many women because he's a womanizer, isn't it?
Yes, well, a womanizer, actually, let's have a look. So, Edkin has asked me to define a womanizer. What is a womanizer? A womanizer is a playboy. Now, let's look at the very first reference I'm coming across. A philanderer, a womanizer. It's a man who is a playboy, right? A Don Juan, a debauchee, a libertine, someone who is morally unrestrained, someone who successfully seduces women, someone who behaves selfishly in his sexual relationships with women, an adult male who is aggressive in making sexual advances on women, a Casanova. That is the definition of womanizer.
Huh. She was one.
And we are to believe that this is the perfect man, Don Juan.
Well, well, that's why such a discussion is definitely important to expose such things. Okay, so let's move on. Is there anything as to okay, so from the Christian perspective, what you have is that the woman is she has a lot of how can I say, a lot of respect. She is wise. There's no, demeaning of her intellectual abilities. There's no demeaning of her physical abilities, that she is able to do a lot of things. She should be doing a lot of things. She should be getting involved in decision making, etc., because she is a blessing to her family, etc. As we saw in Proverbs 31. On the Islamic side, what we've seen is that, excuse me, what we've seen is that the woman is called a dog, or is rather compared to a dog or a donkey. She
And she's
is
impure,
she
she
is
actually nullifies the prayer.
Okay, yeah, that, and that her intellectual abilities is questioned, that her intellect is half of that with a man. So
Yeah.
that's what we've seen so far.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I want to go through another source then. So, guys, I'll bring up another source. So, it was narrated that blah, 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 he prostrated to the Prophet and said, I went to Sham and I saw them prostrating to their bishops and patricians, and I wanted to do that for you. So, he prostrated in front of Muhammad. And the Messenger of Allah said, do not do that. If I were to command anyone to prostrate to anyone other than Allah, I would have commanded women to prostrate to their husbands. So they should, in other words, worship their husbands. They should be very subservient. No woman can fulfill her duty towards Allah until she fulfills her duty towards her husband. If he asks her for sex, even if she's on a camel saddle, she should not refuse. So there seems to be a very great emphasis here on sexual availability. The woman is your tilth. Approach her when and how you will. So there seems to be an emphasis on sexual utility. Your thoughts,
Yep,
Shimon?
definitely. One of the things that I actually came across was, Surah 434, right?
Yes.
So on that, Ibn Kathir and Ibn Abbas makes their commentary is to such an extent whereby if a woman actually withholds sex, those three disciplinarian steps must be applied. That if a woman is, refusing sexual intercourse to her husband, then discipline must be applied. So it really is, just kind of like adding on to what you're saying over there. So I think we're moving into the treatment of women now. We've seen how the Islamic, theology views women, and how comparatively Christianity views women. They are two different um, things, and completely two different views that stands in opposition to one another at this
Yeah.
stage, at least.
Yeah, Veronica asked a very good question, but Veronica, just for the moment, I would have to say that when has Islam ever made sense? Right? So now notice that women need to cover themselves so that they are not molested. Otherwise, they may be molested because they're making themselves sexually available. Stephen Gilchrist says, "Have you read the hadith of Allah sending His angels to curse the women who don't have sex with their husbands until the morning?" Yes, I am aware that it's probably in here somewhere. Yeah, women must put their husbands before Allah. This cult is amazing from KL. Yes, yes. So do you have further things from the scriptures you want to share with us, Shimon?
I wanted to quickly go into how the women are actually treated now, if
Okay,
that's
please.
okay. Okay, and then you can kind of also then start responding, and we can start comparing as
Of
to
course.
how
Yeah.
Islam actually treats women. Okay, so if we look at the treatment of women in Ephesians chapter 5, I love that portion of scripture from verses 22 downwards, is in comparison to at least the Islamic way, right? Is that the husband ought to love. If you see over here, verse 22, what's going on? Oh, you're opening up. Okay. Verse
Just bring it up
22,
here.
wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands as unto the Lord, right? So it's in the manner that you do that. There's high regard and commitment. However, the story doesn't end there. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Great. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let wives be to their own husbands in everything. Now, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. Now, we know that, at least from the Christian perspective, I'm going to ask my Muslim friends at this stage to grant me the fact that at least the Christian perspective is that Christ died for the very church he came to save, right? And so at this stage, husbands loving their wives in like manner, in imitating Christ's love for the church, is to such an extent that a rebellious church, Christ comes and dies and wants to save and lives his life for the specific church. And so
Yes.
what we understand is that a husband, even in this regard, is that regardless of how whatever kind of wife you've got, she can be super rebellious. She can be I'm trying to refrain from using strong language, but she can be rebellious, disobedient. She can be harsh. She can be rude. She can be abusive towards you. But there is never, and I must say this carefully and very, how can I say, observantly, at least from within the scripture, there is never a time whereby the husband, regardless of what the wife does, whereby a husband retaliates
Against the
to
wife.
the wife in
Yeah.
wanting to discipline her or
Well,
whatever.
it does
He
say here
must
that
just
you are
love
to
her.
sacrifice. Remember, Christ sacrificed himself for the church, and by the same token, it implies that men should sacrifice themselves for their wives.
Yes,
And it says here
yes,
to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word. So you are to make her holy, right? Never demean her. And so there's a very
Look
different
at verse
context here. And in
28.
the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no
Yes,
one ever
that's
hated their own body. They feed and care
yes.
for their own body as Christ does the church.
Amen. So now that was something that I also actually wanted to go to is that what you notice over there is that the man is being taught that if you are now going to do whatever, ill treat the body or whatever the case is, you are ill treating the wife, you're ill treating yourself. That unity between a husband and wife, and that how can I say, restraint from ill treating her is severe at this stage.
Right.
It is severe. There's not a stage, and then what we have is comparatively to to at least Surah 434. Do you want to quickly put that up for our audience?
Let me see. Actually, let me just do a search here. 434.
Surah 434.
Here we go.
Surah.
This is the tafsir on Surah 434. So, of course, let me see. This is the Quran. This is the. Hold on. Let me just
Yeah, there we
try and.
go. Okay. 434.
No, I actually don't have it explicitly. My bad. I actually don't use it because I tend to use the Sharia and the tafsir. I don't use the Quran as much. But this is the tafsir related to this. Let me actually just find. Just give me 1 second. I will bring up.
Can I share my screen?
It won't take me very long.
Okay.
Here we go. Done.
Okay. So what you have is, can we quickly read that?
Men are
are
in
the
charge of
caretakers
women
of. Yeah,
by
sorry,
right.
go ahead.
Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other. In other translations, one excels over the other because they spend of their property for the support of women. So good women are obedient, guarding in secret that which Allah has guarded. That's their chastity. As for those from whom you fear rebellion, not from those who have rebelled, from those you suspect rebellion, admonish them and banish them to their beds apart and scourge them. Others will say, strike them, right? And if they obey you once more, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever grand. And of course it says
So
beat them.
yeah.
Also there's the beat them lightly. Of course, any words that are in... Now notice, I want you to be clear, Harold. I'm going to shift this over to the side quickly. Give me 1 moment. I need to clarify something. Any words that are in parentheses like this are not in the original Arabic. They were added by the translators. And it says here, and lost, beat them. That's purely in this translation. It's not in the original Arabic. So beating them is not the last course of action. It is not. Go on, Shaman.
Okay, so I wanted to, you see now this is the 3-step disciplinary, process. What you have is, at least in the second translation, the Sahih International, I think that's what it's called, is advise them, then forsake them in bed, like leave them be, and then strike them to beat them, etc. But if they obey you, then you can stop doing that. Now, how do the Muslims respond to this verse? Now, can I quickly go through
Sure.
the 3, at least, guys? Okay, so Shabir Ali, one of the things about Dr. Shabir Ali is that when he has troubling hadith, he's very quick in just dismissing them and rejecting them as his own. That he says that no, scholars would not agree with it, etc. So he doesn't really and necessarily respond to Christian polemics, at least towards the hadith. I'm not sure why he does that, but he does that. It does, I promise you, from my perspective, at least come across a little dishonest. Okay. However, what he does is that he comments on Surah 434 and he says that this 3-step process thing, disciplinary process, is not referring to husbands. It's referring to a third party, for example, a judge or a wider community. What do you have to say about that?
He's lying.
He says that it's... yes, he is. Because Ibn Kathir, Abbas, Al-Maududi, and all of these scholars disagree with him. They talk about... And plus, look at that. If For example, if
Actually,
it was a judge
yeah,
or a wider community, why would the instruction be to forsake the wife in bed? Since when does the
correct.
wider community and my judge sleep with my wife?
Yeah, actually, you know what?
That's weird.
There's a couple of,
Yeah.
yes, yes. um, there's a couple of very interesting questions and comments that came up from Corin Thompson. Doesn't the Arabic word use scourge? This means to whip, and that is correct. That is true, Corin. I'll get to that in a moment. Actually, that's well worth raising. Veronica at the Well says, so the man practically buys the woman for sexual services, and if she does not make herself available, she's breaking the contract. Now, in the previous show with you, Shamoon, I went through the initial stages of marriage, and he literally, the man gets married for sex. There is no other reason for him to get married. As you remember, the marriage contract
Yes, I
actually
do.
stipulates he
Yes,
gets
I do.
married for sex. She makes herself
Yeah,
available for sex. There is no
I remember.
sacrament, there's no love. There was purely, this is a sexual services contract, so he doesn't get killed for having sex. Now, I want to bring, this is Arbery. I've just brought up the Arbery translation in Quranics. Men are the managers of the affairs of women, right? Allah has preferred one of them over the other, right? And from those whom you may fear, those you fear may be rebellious, beat them. Say so bluntly. Okay? Now I want to
Yeah.
get to my
Sorry,
notes.
Lloyd.
Yes?
We are
Almost on time. Yes, please.
9 minutes left to
Yeah.
time. I'm not
That's fine,
sure if
yeah.
you want to stop the questions.
That's cool, yeah. So I want to bring this up. Um, I actually want to bring up a specific. So, Corin, with regards to what you asked, this I want to show you this Sahih Bukhari Hadith 7, Volume 7, Book 62, Hadith 132, narrated blah blah blah. Muhammad said, none of you should flog his wife the way he flogs a slave and then have sex with her in the last part of the day. So he says, don't whip your wife the way you whip your slave and then have sex with her at night.
How?
So if you want to have sex with her at night, don't whip her the way you would whip one of your slaves. So
So whip her in
yes,
a different fashion, at least.
yes, whip her a little differently. Whip her just a little bit. Now, personally, I have not yet met a man who owns a whip to use on his wife or his slaves, but I guess there's always room to be
Unless,
surprised.
well, unless he's got weird fetishes, right?
Well, that's a little different because that's consensual, right?
Yeah,
Man,
sure.
that's outside the scope of this argument. So yes. So do not flog your. You know, you've seen floggings. You know what a whipping looks like. You know exactly what a whipping is, and this is precisely what it says. It's Sahih Bukhari, which means, obviously, as you know, as any Islamic apologist will tell you, that this was written by an evil Christian missionary. We have sourced it from a fake Christian missionary website, and this is written by an enemy of Islam. And Sahih and Bukhari is not a real Muslim. So I think we've covered the typical Islamic objections. So your comments from you,
Gee whiz.
Shimon.
Yeah, it is. I think that the Muslims, like even at this stage, Shabir Ali, just denying the fact that the husband is allowed to beat his wife, etc. And even if there's just like a straight lie, because what you have is that Dr. Shabir Ali, when he makes a comment on Surah 434 about the fact that women can be beaten, forget the whole beating part even. Comparing the fact that the women should be left alone in bed, that in itself is it's
Well,
radically different than the Christian perspective. Is the husband must love his wife, must be given to
right.
her wholly, regardless of whatever. Don't
Well,
leave her
there's
in bed and stuff. There's nothing like that in, at least in the Christian community. We must love our wives. That's
okay.
it.
No, so there's an emphasis on punishment within the Sharia, within Islam. So someone asked me if I can
Yeah.
provide them. I'm just trying to find the name here. If I can find. So guys, if you look in the description, for whoever asked, I just read it. If I can find the website references, guys. If you go to the description, there is a link to a OneDrive link, which is this database that you see me using right here, right now. And you will find a link to this. and you should find a page that has all of this detail. You'll find I have a subset of my database. This is my full database on Islam here, all the categories on the right, all the pages, but I have a tiny subset of that. Follow the OneDrive link, let it load in your browser, and you will find this here. If it's not there, I will make sure I paste it in there by tomorrow morning. Okay, so you can get all this. Now, I want to give people, so in the last few minutes, Shamoon, would you mind if I just went over some of the actual laws on beating women in Islam?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, because we're dealing with
So
Surah 4.
let's start with some of the sources. So this is, of course, Bukhari, the limits and punishment set by Allah. Hudud, this is punishment. Narrated Aisha, Abu Bakr came towards me and struck me violently with his fist. And he did this because she made people wait for her because she was searching for her necklace. I remained motionless as if I was dead, lest I should wake up Allah's messenger, Muhammad. That hit was very painful. Sahih Bukhari, hadith number 6845. Now I want to go on here. This is Sunan Abu Dawud. He, the Prophet, gave permission to beat them. Because someone came to him, and Umar came to him and said, women have become bold towards their husbands. So Muhammad gave permission to beat them. Now understand,
Wait,
you asked, yes?
Can I interject there quickly? So
Yes.
the response generally that Muhammad Hijab and Nauman Ali Khan at least says is that to beat a wife, now please respond to this, is that at least Muhammad Hijab says so. The beating of a wife is only allowed in self-defense, right? For
That is a
example,
lie,
a woman
an absolute
cut
lie.
you, etc.
That's an absolute
Okay.
lie, because you asked me earlier about the context of the hadith. Now, often the hadith have no context, and the Quran itself often has no context. The Sharia is the context of the Quran. Understand, the Sharia is the final context. It is the final explanation.
Yep.
So now, let's go to another hadith. Muslim, book 4, hadith 2127. He struck me on the chest, which caused me pain. This is Muhammad hitting his wife painfully.
Yeah.
Right? And he said, do you think that Allah and his apostle would deal unjustly with you? Obviously, this tells us that to hit his wife is justice. It is just to do so.
Yeah.
Now,
Justice. Yeah.
Tabari. So now we're going through the Sunnah, okay, to understand the Sunnah. Then we'll look at the Sharia, right, which is derived from all of this and gives us the formal legal rulings. Allah permits you to shut them in separate rooms and to beat them. Now, this part is probably in brackets, okay? If they abstain, if they stop misbehaving, then they have the right to food and clothing. Implying, of course, if they don't behave, well, they don't get food and clothing, now do they? And of course, treat women well, for they are domestic animals and they possess nothing themselves. They're like domestic animals. Allah has made the enjoyment of their bodies lawful in his Quran. At-Tabari, volume 9, page 113. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a good response because what at least from Nauman Ali Khan, that's the thing I was still saying is that they're talking about if the woman actually the beating is more self-defense.
No,
because
there is
whatever
absolutely
woman
no,
comes
because he's
with
allowed to do so at
knives-
the first hint. No, that's a flat-out lie. Let me get into the Sharia.
So he
Let's talk
says-
specifically.
That,
Sure.
can I say what Nauman Ali Khan? He says that if she is crazy rebellion, these are like quoted. I'm verbatim quoting him, right? But anyone in the audience can go on and please find Nauman Ali Khan and his comments on 434, Surah 434 on YouTube. He says that this beating is for if she is crazy, she's been crazy in her rebellion, unusual rebellion, or out of control rebellion, whereby she is breaking plates, cutting you, and etc. And so that is where even Muhammad Hijab says whereby the woman is attempting to kill the child. So that is when the beating is allowed.
He is lying out of his mouth. Seriously.
Okay.
Look, no. Let's go to the Sharia, Islamic law that he follows. He's a mukallaf, right? He's a man of
before
taqlid.
you go to
Yes.
before you go to the Sharia, can I quickly say what Ibn Kathir says though?
Yes, please.
Okay, Ibn Kathir on Surah 434, he says that the process of discipline is applied in these categories, which once again is disagreeing with all Shabir Ali, Muhammad Hijab, and Nauman Ali Khan, etc. He says If she acts like she is above her husband, she can be, the three steps of discipline can be applied and beaten. Number two, if she simply disobeys him, please, guys, go and read the stuff up. I'm not making this. I'm taking it directly from him. Okay. If she ignores him, he can apply these three steps of discipline and then in the end beat her. And or she dislikes him. Simply disliking the husband can result in her getting beaten up. This is now Ibn Kathir. So that's all I wanted to say.
Wow.
You guys go and check it out.
That's crazy. Okay, so guys, this is Imam Nawawi, right? Sheikh al-Islam, one of the top 28 most famous and influential scholars in Islamic history, right? At the first indication, now this is from his book, the Minhaj al-Taliban, which is a manual of fiqh, right? Islamic law, Islamic sacred law, they call it. So, at the first indication of disobedience to marital authority, a wife should be exhorted by a husband without his immediately breaking off relations. Right? Now this is a recommendation. This is what you can do, not what you should do. Right? When she manifests her disobedience by an act which, though isolated, in other words, the first time, leaves no doubt as to her intentions, he should repeat his exhortations and confine her to a chamber, but without striking her. He may have recourse to blows even where disobedience is manifested by an isolated act, by a single incident. So in other words, you may resort to blows. He doesn't say slaps, he says blows. That normally means this. Only where there are repeated acts of disobedience may a husband inflict corporal chastisement. By corporal chastisement, they mean get your whip, get your stick.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. Now I'm going to go to the Reliance of the Traveller. You know that very famous Reliance of the Traveller. I am constantly referencing that. Link in the description, guys. Section M 10.11, dealing with a rebellious wife. So when a husband notices signs of rebelliousness in his wife, whether in words, as when she answers him coldly, when she used to do so politely, or he asks her to come to bed and she refuses, contrary to a usual habit, or whether in acts, as when he finds her averse to him when she was previously kind and cheerful, he warns her in words, without keeping from her or hitting her. So don't hit her just yet. Okay?
Yeah.
But hitting definitely is coming. It may be she has an excuse. The warning could be, tell her, fear Allah concerning the rights you owe to me. In other words, wash my feet with your face, woman. Or it could be to explain that rebellious nullifies his obligation to support her. In other words, she can make her starve. He can lock her up in a room and let her starve, as we showed earlier. Right? Or, your obeying me is religiously obligatory. In other words, you will listen to me. If she commits rebelliousness, that means she doesn't listen to him. He keeps from sleeping and having sex with her without words, and he may hit her. Of course, now we don't know if the translator put this in, or if this is in the original Arabic. I'm assuming it's actually not. Now, it says here, he may not bruise her, break her bones, wound her, or cause blood to flow. It is unlawful to strike another's face. Now, normally when you get into fights, you don't get to be very, shall we say, sophisticated about it. Now, what's important is that always the Sharia contradicts itself. Understand this. This is where you can see this very clearly laid out. He may hit her, whether she is rebellious, only once, or whether more than once. A weaker opinion holds that he may not hit her unless there is repeated rebelliousness. So the stronger opinion is the very first time she steps out of line, hit her. So they then go on. Now, whether this is actually in the original Arabic, that's a question. Both man and wife are obliged to treat each other kindly and graciously, except hit her if she steps out of line. Of course, it is not lawful for a wife to leave the house except by the permission of her husband. And if she does, pop quiz, what is he supposed to do to her? Yes, you guessed it. Right?
Hit.
Now...
Well, just to comment, isn't this she's not allowed to leave the house without his permission, somewhat also different than what we read in Proverbs chapter 31, whereby the woman is allowed to do so much more without much permission from her husband. She's got so much responsibility and weight on her shoulders.
He does own her. He literally does own her. So if keeping from
her,
it's
interesting.
If keeping from her is ineffectual, it is permissible for him to hit her. If keeping from her, if ignoring her doesn't work, hit her. Okay? If he believes that hitting her will bring her back to the right path. In other words, the beatings will continue until her morale improves. Though if he doesn't think it is not permissible, if you don't think beating the crap out of your wife will work, don't do it. But if you think it'll work, go for it. Get your whip.
But how would you? My question would be: is how would the husband know that if it would work or
A
not?
man will not
that's
be asked why he beat
that's
his wife.
that's just weird.
That's the sunnah. That's Muhammad's words. A man will not be asked why he beat his wife. He's hitting her, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, so guys, as you can see, so I will leave this here. Okay, I'll leave you on one final quote. This is from the Ihya Ulum al-Din. This is the #1 most read Islamic spiritual manual after the Quran by Al-Ghazali. Hazrat Aisha said to the Prophet, you speak, but don't speak except truth. In other words, she was telling him not to lie to her because he was lying to her. And she said, don't speak except if you speak the truth. Hazrat Abu Bakr gave her such a slap that blood began to ooze out from her mouth. And he called her, O enemy, will you speak but truth? Then she took refuge. Then she ran to Muhammad. So, yes, she was beaten on more than one occasion. In this case, with blood. So we need to end here.
Okay, we do need to end here. Do you want to quickly take questions? I can't see any of yours.
Yeah.
I have one. Is
Sure.
the exclusion of, I've got from Power of Pages, is the exclusion of women in Catholicism an accurate biblical Christian doctrine? I'm
I
not
have
sure.
no idea what's in
exclusion-
Catholic doctrine. I don't have a clue.
Yeah. I'm not sure exclusion in what way, so I won't be able to necessarily be able to answer that specific question. However, I am a little familiar with the Catholic doctrines, but I'm not sure. But in what
Yeah, I don't know. I'd
regard
have to
is
read
it?
up on that. Guys, also, I've noticed that for some reason with YouTube, my channel buffers. Now, I upgraded my internet. I bought a brand new router. I'm getting some really fast speeds. I'm getting the report here is excellent. There's no drop frames. Things are working. So for some reason, YouTube has started to, like, every second, my channel pauses. It runs for 1 second, pauses for a second. It's been happening to people, and yeah, it's been happening to me. So this is a YouTube problem. I have no control over it. It usually fixes itself in 1 day. So yeah, guys, I need to end here, and we will pick this up
Any
next
questions
week.
from your
Shimon.
side? No.
No, I'm
Any
fine. I
questions
think,
from your side?
yeah. Now, are you happy that we've illustrated very different views of women within the two different religions?
I am. I think there's I'm a little bit, to be honest. I think the Christian a look into the Christian perspective of women is somewhat boring, honestly, because it's so contemporary that we all somewhat agree to it. I think that the more exciting one is the look into the Islamic perspective. That's very informing and very illuminating, I must say. Very, very nice, very exciting stuff. So hopefully next week, Monday, we should be live to just kind of talk a little bit more on the issue.
Yeah, no, certainly. So Veronica asked, does the guardian or father have the same rights regarding beating? To my knowledge, yes. You can beat your daughters. You can beat, yeah. To my knowledge, yes. That's within the Sharia law. We'd have to dive deeper, but I just wanted to highlight specific rulings. But yes, the context is all there, and there are multiple rulings attesting to that, if I recall. There's more than one Sharia manual, and they all say the same things. Yeah, guys, so I think I need to end it here. I finished work late, and please, guys, I want to say, please join Sam Shamoon over his Shamoon Khan at his channel. My apologies. Please go to his channel. Please sign up. His link is in the description. Please go to his channel, support him there. Give a like to this video, please, guys. Give a few likes to Shamoon's videos, and please subscribe to him over there. His channel's growing. And yeah, so please do show him some support. I appreciate that, and we will be back next Monday to continue this and talk more about this particular subject. All right.
Just a quick announcement that from now on, like every Friday, I'll be releasing a video This will not be like apologetics or a comparative look into issues and stuff. This is purely Christian theology for those who are interested. So I'll be starting with the Calvin's Institutes of Christian Religion, translated by Henry Beveridge. I'll be going through chapter. I'm on book one, chapter one, just every week try and like provide like a summary of it. It should be about 10 minutes. At least I'll try to do that. And so whoever is interested, please do watch and join me there.
Yeah,
Thanks.
please look out. So Friday I'll be online again with Stephen Gilchrist. We'll be talking about Islamic polemics and, of course, Christian apologetics, how to deal with some of these arguments. And next week, Shamun Khakan and I will be again at the same time slot. And, of course, he will be doing, I have spoken to him and to Ask Truth Apologetics, and they'll be teaming up to do an interview on his channel, and hopefully they'll do some more content together. So thank you guys. I will call it here. I went a little bit over time, but thank you very much for being here, supporting us, and we'll see you guys next time. Good night.
Great. Good night.